Welcome to this inaugural video legislative update from the Medical Society of Delaware. I'm Dr. Joe Hacker, the Chair of Legislation for the Medical Society. Today I'd like to speak to you all about the recent legislative session, highlighting some of the bills and issues from that session. Going forward, we'll use this format to keep you all updated on legislative issues so that you can remain actively involved. The first bill that I wanted to speak to you about today is House Bill 349, which updates the licensure status of physician's assistants. For the past 2 years, the Medical Society has worked diligently with the physician's assistants to modernize and update this statute. I'm pleased to report that this passed both the House and the Senate, and we expect the governor to sign it. Very significant in this update is defining the supervisory level that physician's assistants must have with physicians. We feel that defining this level is important as other non-providers in the future look for independent practice. We can use this model in those situations so that all are defined as being supervised by physicians. The next bill that I wanted to speak to you about is Senate Bill 311. This revises the state's mental health law with respect to emergency 24-hour holds on psychiatric patients. This bill was introduced by the state, supposedly to bring Delaware law into compliance with federal mandates as mandated by the Department of Justice. The initial bill that was introduced was very troubling, particularly for our psychiatry and our emergency department physicians. I'm pleased to report, however, that after legislative negotiations, we were able to come up with a substitute bill addressing these concerns, which ultimately passed the House and the Senate. This was not, however, before the Delaware trial lawyers tried to introduce an amendment to significantly weaken the immunity provisions in the current statute covering these physicians and the care of these patients. I'm pleased to report that we defeated the trial lawyers and the immunity provision will stay the same. Next is Senate Bill 278, which sought to amend the Uniform Controlled Substances Act. For the past 6 months, representatives from the Medical Society have been working with other stakeholders, including state officials, to redo this statute to allow us to continue to care for our patients with chronic pain. We were completely blindsided, along with all of the other stakeholders, when 4 days before the end of the session, certain state officials decided to introduce this bill. Our legislative team jumped to action, and we were able to resolve that this bill would not be heard in the House, and it died a quiet life at the end of the session. We look forward to working with these officials and the other stakeholders to come to terms with this language so that we all can continue to provide the care that we need to provide to our patients with these problems. We also supported Senate Bill 160, which banned the use of bath salts in the state of Delaware, and House Bill 265, which requires health plans that cover injectable anti-cancer drugs to also cover oral anti-cancer drugs. Both of these were signed into law. Finally, I want to mention House Bill 392, submitted by Representative Kowalko, and calling for a single payer in the state of Delaware. While this did not really get much consideration and died at the end of the session, it is important for us to take note of this, since these kinds of bills calling for alternative payer systems are very likely to be seen again over the next several years. And we all as physicians and as a medical society need to be prepared to deal with these. There were many other bills that the Medical Society considered and were involved with over the course of this session, but for the sake of time I will direct you to the next print edition of the Medical Society's newsletter for a more detailed summary of these. The regulatory front was also very active, and there are 2 sets of regulations that you should look for over the next several months. First involves defining invasive procedures that physicians perform in their offices. These offices will be subject to certain accreditation standards for these physicians to continue to provide these procedures in their offices. And second is a rather sweeping overhaul of regulations related to freestanding surgery centers. I can assure you that your Medical Society legislative team has been very actively involved with the state in rewriting these regulations so that it does not interfere with our ability to care for our patients. Finally, on a personal note, I want to take this opportunity to let everybody know that I have decided to step down as chair of legislation for the Medical Society. With many other commitments, I just have found it difficult to manage the time that this job requires. It needs time and deserves time so that this job is done adequately. I will assure you that I will remain very active legislatively on behalf of all of us, and I encourage you all to do the same. It certainly has been my privilege to serve. That's it for this legislative update. Have a great day.